Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to change the oil on a 2010 Mercedes Benz GL 450. This is one of the larger SUVs that Mercedes makes. First thing you want to do before anything else is you want to make sure that the engine is warm. I've had this car in here overnight in the garage and I've had it running for the last 2 minutes and then just shut it off just to give the oil a chance to circulate. This one's a little bit broken. And then the next thing that you want to do is kind of get a bearing as to where you are inside the engine. This is the oil filler cap. This is where you're going to put in the fresh oil. And under here is the air, sorry, not the air, excuse me, the oil filter. So the first thing that we want to do is actually loosen this guy to let the oil, drain down into the pan. So we're going to do that next. So in terms of tools and supplies, what you're going to need is fresh oil. This car takes just under 9 liters of oil. I like the Liqui Moly products. They're a nice synthetic oil, and I actually get them from FCP Euro. And what's great about FCP Euro is you buy the oil once, and then what they do is basically you just take the old oil, put it back into the container, send it back, and they give you a full refund on the oil, which is great. You're going to need an oil filter. This one here is the HU718/5X. This is the one for this car. Then you're going to need just some hand tools. This is a 3/8 inch socket, the flexible head, which helps you get into different places. This is a torque wrench, which you're going to need to torque down the oil train bolt that's underneath, just to be able to make sure that you don't crush it and everything is fine. This is a tool that you use to undo the oil filter, which again is right there. And this is just an inexpensive socket set from Harbor Freight. Love their tools, lifetime guarantee. That you're going to need to undo the bolt underneath to let the oil out, and this is just a oil drain pan. Okay, so before actually draining the oil from underneath, what we want to do is loosen the oil filter from here, and what that's going to do is allow air to fall in and help push the oil out and allow this guy to drip out. So we're going to need this tool and this tool. What we're going to do is just take off the 10mm socket and put on this tool, and then we'll unscrew that. Okay, so here's our setup now. We have our ratchet, we have an extension, and this is the tool that we need to loosen the oil filter cap. So this just goes on top like that. Let's see if I can do it one-handed for you. There we go, and that's loose. So, and drain, so we can do the rest by hand. Take this guy off, put that over there. And just let it sit. That's what a dirty oil filter looks like. You can see the oil there in the bottom. We're just going to let this guy drip out just on his own and allowing air to pass through. And that'll help the oil underneath just drain a little bit quicker. Okay, so now we're looking underneath the car. And what you'll notice is that there's this shield to protect the engine and some of the components like coolers and whatnot. And this is the first thing that needs to be taken out. There's about 10 or 12 10mm bolts, these guys right here. So there's one that just focused there, another one there. There's just a series of them all the way around. And just to give you a perspective, this is where the front of the car is, and we're just underneath. So we're going to start undoing these bolts. Again, using your ratchet set and a 10mm socket, just going to go in there and unbolt them. I'll be right back. The drain plug should be under here somewhere. Let's find it. Oh, here it is right here, just at the front of the drain pan. Nice and simple, really easy. What you see over here is the bolt itself, that little copper looking thing right behind it. Just needed to focus. That's called a crush washer, so you're going to change both of those. The oil in there is nice and warm from having run the engine before. So the next thing we're going to do is put the drain pan under here to catch all the old oil, and then we'll undo the bolt, and it's all going to fall out. Take our ratchet, get back underneath the car, and right there is where we want to loosen it. I've already cracked this open because I needed 2 hands, but what you would do is just turn that there. Now what we're going to do, this is the tricky part. You want to put your oil catch can in such a way that you think you're going to catch most of it, because again, you don't want to make a mess. So just loosen that guy just by hand. You can see the oil start to come out slowly. What you can do is you can keep pressure on it, on the bolt that is, just to give it a chance the oil pressure for you. So you can see it start to drip out now. And then the oil typically shoots out a little bit when it first comes out, so you want to position the oil catch can to where you think you're going to get most of it. And then just slowly, and there it goes. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take out our oil filter. That's been draining up here for quite a few minutes. There shouldn't be a lot of oil in it anymore. And there isn't. What we're going to do is we're going to bring it over to our workspace. The oil filter itself, which is this guy. We also have some seals. So what we want to do is actually replace the seals that are currently on our oil filter. So there's one here, and there's another two there, 1 and 2, and you'll see in there you have 3 seals. So that's what we want to change, and all we need to do that is just a little pick. We're going to pick them off, put the new guys on, put the new oil filter on, and then screw this guy back in. Okay, so after using my pick, what you do is you kind of get it in between there, and you just get off the 3 seals, 1, 2, and 3. These are the 3 seals you're left with. What you want to do is put them in order, so bottom, middle, and top, so you remember everything goes. And then your oil filter here just unscrews. What you want to do is, because this is all from FCP Euro and they give you a full refund on what you already bought, you're just going to pack them up. It's been draining for a while. Put it in a bag along with the other seals. And that's going to be part of what you're going to send back to them to get your full refund. Now, the package of seals, if you remember, that came outside of this box actually had 5 seals in it. So you have the big guy that goes on top, right there, and the 2 middle ones, there and there. So I'll put those back on and be right back. Okay, so I put this back together. Seals are there, 1, 2, and 3. What you want to do is take a little bit of the old oil off the old filter. Just put it on your gloves and make sure to lubricate all the seals. And the reason you want to do that is when you're putting it back into the oil filter housing itself, you don't want these guys binding up and getting out of place. And then the oil filter itself, it just kind of pushes in. Really easy, nothing to it. So now we're going to put that back in the car. So an important step before you actually put the oil filter that we've assembled earlier back into the oil filter housing is you want to put some fresh oil in there, this guy. And the reason you want to do that is because when you first start the engine, you don't want there to be any dry spots anywhere. You want it to have oil. And normally what will happen is that if you don't fill this, you have to wait for the oil to come in from the bottom of the sump pump all the way back through the filter and then to lubricate the engine. If you put some in here, you kind of short circuit that process and make sure that the engine doesn't run dry at any point. So just grab your oil. There you go, and just pour some in. You don't need a ton. But again, you just don't want it to be dry. So until you see, what you want to see is you want to see some oil start to accumulate there. Just like that. And it's actually falling, you can see it, it's draining back into the engine, which is exactly what you want. So I'm putting in 1 of the 9 liters that this car needs. Directly in there. Just let it sit there for a sec. And again, that's just going through all the way to the engine and lubricating the top part of it, if you will. So you're not waiting for the oil to come in from the bottom. Alright, so that's finished draining. I'm just going to put that on the side. Then we're going to take our oil filter, put it in there. I'm just going to hand tighten it at first. Alright, so that's about as hard as I can get it by hand. And what you're going to see here, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of backwards. There you go. 25 Newton meters with the directional arrow. So it tells you that you want to put 25 Newton meters and tighten it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get our torque wrench, put on our tool that's going to help us tighten this, and we're going to get it down to 25 Newton meters. So if you remember earlier, what we did is we hand tightened this thing. Now what you want to do is get it down to the appropriate torque, and what you want to use is what's called a torque wrench, like this guy. And for the oil filter itself, what you want to do is set it to 25 Newton meters. And I can get as close as 24.9 plus 1, which is this dial. And then what you want to do is just put that in here. I'll try to do it with one hand. And then what you want to do is just turn it until you hear a click from the tool. So the rubbing that you hear are just those gaskets that we oiled before. There we go. So now there's a little bit of resistance. And I'm just going to put my other hand here to hold it, so hopefully you still have a little bit of a view. There you go. You hear that click? So that clicking noise means that we're at the appropriate torque. So from FCP Euro, these are actually parts that, part of their oil change kit that you order based on the make and model of your car. May include a new bolt and a new crush washer. So effectively what that means is that this is something else that's going to get returned to them. We're going to put it inside that bag. That's where we'll get a refund on this tool as well, or sorry, on this bolt as well. So we'll put these two together, and then we'll go back to the underneath of the car, we'll put it in, we'll start filling with oil. What we want to do now is take the drain plug that we put together earlier. What we're going to do is that we're going to bolt that in. Let's see if I can get my flashlight to stand for us. There we go. Just going to bolt that in by hand right now. And then we can move on to the next step, which is going to be to torque it down. So you can see the oil coming out, I think, right, excuse me, right, where's my finger? Right there. I'm just going to put it in by hand. Okay, just putting it in by hand. A little bit of push washer there. There we go. And then what we want to do is grab our torque wrench, which is this guy, right there. And this time we've set it to 30 Newton meters, 29.4 plus 0.6. And we're going to tighten that bolt down to spec. And we'll do it by hand again. Until we hear that click. So I'm going to put you guys down for 1 sec, just so you can hear it. There you go. That's the noise we want to hear. Click, click, click. That means that it's been set to 30 Newton meters. So we're all done down here. What we're going to do is go back up to the top of the car and start filling it with oil. Okay, so now we start adding the oil. Remember that we added one of these guys, which is 1 liter, directly into the oil filter housing itself. So there's a liter already sitting in the engine. Now we want to add the other 8 liters, so 5, 6, 7, 8 for a total of 9. So I'm going to loosen this guy, take him out, just set him to the side, and you want to put in your funnel. This one's not the greatest funnel, but it'll work. And now what we do is just pour the oil in. I've cracked one of these guys open so we can start getting some oil into the engine. And I'm going to try to do it one-handed and not spill anything. We'll see how that goes. It's pouring in nicely. And you want to keep these containers, because what you're going to do is take the old oil that we picked up before, pour it back into these containers. Just let that sit there for a second, and then we'll get it back to FCP Euro for our basically free oil change. So what's great about that is you pay for your oil change once, and then you just order from them, send them back the old oil, and then they send you when they give you a refund on the oil the second time around. So from there on out, it's basically a free oil change. You can't beat that, especially when the dealership is trying to charge you. For this car, I think it was about $150 at the local Mercedes Benz dealership, and even a jogger is going to charge you, I guess, about $120. So I'll go through these. I need 2 hands to do that big guy, and then be back in a bit. Okay, so we've changed all the oil, torqued everything to spec. Car actually took a little bit over 9 liters, about 9.5, so it's a good thing I bought the extra one. Looked underneath for leaks, so now we're just going to put this engine cover back. Should snap into place. That's it. We're done. End of job. Thanks for watching.